Today, I would like to speak about the difference between self-inquiry, Atma Vichara, and the mantra, with the view to bringing out self-inquiry's beautiful preciousness. Remember, in the beginning was the existential opening. The existential opening came unto me and said unto me, what you think you are, that you are not. And what you feel that you are, that too you are not. And when I heard this and contemplated it and felt it fully in my bones, I realized that I didn't know who I was. In this sense, I was and remain in no man's land. For on one side are those who dogmatically assert, without direct experience, that they know themselves. In fact, beyond dogmatically asserting it, they everywhere presuppose it. Meanwhile, on my right are those who have realized through direct experience who they really are. And thus it can be said truly that they know thyself. The first is ignorant of self-knowledge, while the second is self-knowledge. I too am ignorant of self-knowledge, yet I know that I do not know what I am, and yet still I do not know truly what I am. Thus am I placed in no man's land. It is here that the path of knowledge begins. For only here and only now can I begin to inquire, but not into the world or into the body, but into the very nature of my being. Thus, it is called self-inquiry. As if for the first time in earnest, I can then hear and be gripped by the question, who am I? Last time I discussed how self-inquiry leads to the privileged sight of one-pointed concentration. In this sight, I ask, who am I? And hold myself to this quivering who. given then that many meditation practices seek to bring one to one pointed concentration, it behooves us to ask, what is the difference, for instance, between following the breath and self-inquiry, or between a mantra and Atma Vichara? Let us consider the latter, namely the difference between repeating a mantra and doing self-inquiry. Ramana Maharshi says in various places that self-inquiry is not a mantra. And how then are they different? Well, a mantra involves repetition, say, of the divine name, and the point is devotional love. The point, that is to merge with the divine substance. By contrast, self-inquiry is not a repetition of any sort, and certainly not a repetition of divine name, and it comes initially not out of devotional love, but rather out of a desire for knowledge. While both meditation practices may lead, as they ordinarily do, to one pointed concentration, in self-inquiry, one pointed concentration quivers with a sense of not yet knowing, with a sense of irresolution. While the question, who am I, occurs time and time again, it too cannot be said to be the repetition, or you might say the empty repetition of a question. When we do self-inquiry, yes, we are seeing that any thought is not me or not mine. We are asking, who am I, after a thought has arisen. Yet dispelling thoughts is only the negative or deconstructive part of self-inquiry. For to see what we are not is to, in deep earnest, want to know, who am I? We are not trying to mollify and quiet the mind per se, though this is a byproduct of self-inquiry. Rather, we surely, definitely, almost hungrily long to know what is the source of this mind I or ego I. In this sense, self-inquiry is not like the merger or union with the divine substance. For as I said before, the question, who am I, posed in no man's land, quivers in the air. Remember that who is a pointer to Brahman self? That which is unknown in its actuality. Am is the am of identity and thus serves at once as a point of tension and as a bridge. And I refers to the ego. Who is asking the question, who am I? The mind or ego is asking the question. What a bewildering position to be in. The ego I is asking a question of itself, and it cannot know itself. It's asking a question of itself, and above all, of its origin or source. And it is puzzling, this question, because every answer appears to be an object of knowledge set out in front. Thus, when the question is posed, who am I? And thus, when attention goes searching for some object or another, over time it becomes clear that the entire approach must go. Notice that this is nothing like the repetition of a divine name. This is a very, very deep, uncertain, bewildering investigation. It is carried by a kind of ache, an ache that goes all the way into the darkness. When the question is asked, who am I? After a time, the questioner remains still, holding to the question itself, holding in humble openness to what divine truth may be disclosed. The key and paradox is that the ego I raises the question but cannot answer it. The only answer can come with the removal of the ignorance of the questioner entirely. What does all this mean in practice? It means that who am I, being the most fundamental question, takes on not just an air of punchiness or immediacy, but also an air of mystery. On the one hand, deep in practice, I hold still to the who, while on the other hand, as the wonderment grows, so grows the quivering, the stirring, perhaps even to the yearning or aching. For I am not yet home, am not yet at peace, and I cannot abide in no man's land forever. I can make nothing happen. But what can be realized is the non-existence of my ignorance, such that the who is understood to be all pervasive, all encompassing, all here. And for the who to be all pervasive is just for the who to cease to be a who entirely. And in consequence, for self-inquiry itself to be utterly shucked off as needless. Why? Because the quivering ignorance of myself has, through divine truth, given way to the peaceful abidance in and as myself. In a word, the inquiry is now over.